Of course, this is Coffee with the Mayor, but Mayor Rogers will not be here today. Of course, you might not know his daughter is graduating, so this is the graduation season, so a lot of people out of town, and his daughter's graduating. I think we can give a round of applause for that. Certainly very exciting, and he's a proud father. So he will not be here today, but we're going to definitely make it worth your while coming out here today for Coffee with the Mayor. I want to give you a few brief updates about some of the things that have happened since we last came together. Of course, you remember that we had the Congressional Representative Robin Kelly's Youth Job and Resource Expo on April 16th at Thornton. It was an outstanding program. Some of the video from that is on our website, vodalton.org. If you want to check it out, also the YouTube page, you can see some of the clips from that. Many teenagers, mostly high school students, were there getting information about job placement, helpful hints as far as interviewing, job skills, things of that nature. It was a wonderful event, and there are a lot of great events coming out of the office of Congressional Representative Robin Kelly. Of course, the pitch, hit, and run program, we've had some bad weather a couple of times. You think about baseball, you think about summertime and nice weather. We were kind of rained out on the 14th, on the 30th, when they were originally going to have the setup and sign up the young brothers and sisters who wanted to play ball. But there's going to be another program later today, April 30th. They're going to be later today, the 14th, they're going to be signing some people up as well. The Dalton Chamber of Commerce meeting. We had the Chamber of Commerce meeting. Some of you may know that has been in existence for quite some time. We had quite a few businesses that came out that became new members of the Chamber of Commerce. We had a chance to hear some of their questions and concerns. Of course, anytime you listen to the individuals who are part of the business community, you kind of get a relative gauge on what's going on in the community. So schools, businesses were very interested in what's going on there. We heard about some of their problems, and we heard about some of the good things. So they'll be working with us. We'll be working with the Chamber of Commerce. And if you know any business owners who are interested in being a part of the Dalton Chamber of Commerce, feel free to have them contact our office, and we'll get them in touch with them. Another thing, we had a National Day of Prayer. That was May 5th. Many of the village's spiritual leaders came to the Village Hall for the National Day of Prayer. It's a national observance that takes place all over the United States to pray for elected officials, the military, educators. Pretty much, if you were there, you remember everybody got prayed for at the National Day of Prayer at the Village Hall. It was a wonderful event, and we have also some pictures from that on the Village of Dalton Facebook page if you want to check that out as well. On the 5th, Senator Dick Durbin was here in Dalton, and he took a tour of the R-Dog manufacturing plant on Cottage Grove. Trustee Muhammad was there. Trustee Stubbs was present with the mayor as well. The R-Dog situation is really a success story. Not only is that business here in Dalton, but recently there was a job fair held in which the Chief of Staff, Elizabeth Scott, was very instrumental in bringing those companies here and that company here. And they actually hired several actually quite a few Dalton residents as a result of their interaction. So not only did the business stay here and is the manufacturing company headquartered here, but they also are hiring Dalton's residents. So Dalton is working. That's something that's very important, and we should definitely be glad. And there's more of that where that's coming from. That's just one of the things that we're doing. A lot of your faces, I'm recognizing you from last week, of course. The Mother's Day breakfast, which was a success. We were here in the room. It was wonderful seeing all the mothers and grandmothers there. We hope that you had the opportunity to get some of the respect and honor that you deserve from the office of Mayor Rogers, and then hopefully you went home and there was all kinds of other stuff that happened with your children and husbands and others. So, and of course, Mother's Day is every day. We just, we want to respect and honor you each day, but that was just a special day. Really enjoyed having you all out. Thank you for participating in that. Another thing that happened was the Vietnam Memorial Moving Wall Ceremony, which took place in Hazel Crest on May 7th. Mayor Rogers was there along with many other elected officials. We definitely have to recognize those who fought for the United States and who served in combat and did those things. Definitely, yes, round of applause as well. All right. So at this time, we do have some upcoming events, but what I'll do at this point is we'll have a few reports from some of our department heads. I'll take this time to recognize some of the elected officials that are here amongst us. Of course, you have Mary Kay Dugan, who is our clerk. A round of applause. Okay, you have Trustee Dwayne Muhammad, who is here to the right. Trustee Robert Pearson is also joining us today. Okay, you have our Fire Chief, Chief McCain. You have his Deputy Chief, Chief Rush. You have the Chief of Police, Robert Collins Jr. You have the Superintendent of Public Works, Matt Stacy. And you have the Chief of Staff, Miss Elizabeth Scott. Is there anyone who I missed? Of course, all of you all. I'm just talking about the elected officials of, the village and staff members, etc. You all are very important to us as the residents. Of course, all of you all, we recognize the residents of Dalton as well. Give them a round of applause. Okay. So at this time, we'll have some reports. There's some very important information that the fire chief and the police chief want to bring to you all. At this time, I'll call forth Chief McCain, who will tell us a little bit about some exciting and informative events emanating from the fire department, also joined by Chief Rush.
Thank you, Rashad. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with the Mayor. A couple things. I'll be quick because I know we have a lot of things on the agenda today. The first thing, on June 18th, we're having a health and wellness fair at the fire department at Station 1, 14022 South Park Avenue. That's from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. But prior to that, we're going to join with the police department and Public Works and have our public safety parade with our vehicles, and the route and everything will be made available for those who want to come out and celebrate and support the safety equipment that we have for the community. Also, in addition to the health and wellness program on June 18th, on August 13th, we're going to have, in conjunction with the American Red Cross, we're going to have 2,000 smoke detectors donated to residents of our community. So information will be made available. In fact, I have Deputy Chief Rush here today. He's going to give a little more info regarding that, since he's co-chairing both the health and wellness program and the American Red Cross with donations of smoke detectors to our residents of our village. So thank you, Deputy Chief Rush.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you today. As Chief McCain said, that August 13th, with conjunction with the American Red Cross, we will be doing a smoke detector or smoke alarm distribution campaign. And we do have a sign-up sheet over here for individuals who are interested. And again, that's August 13th. So what you'll actually see is a representative from the American Red Cross. They'll be dressed in a smock or a jacket with the logo on it, also with the proper credentials, and with some of our guys from the Dalton Fire Department. They'll come in and make the installation if it's okay with you. Otherwise, we'll make special provisions for self-installations. So again, this is a very, very, very big affair for us. We're very happy to do that because smoke alarms still save lives, and we appreciate that. So once again, August 13th, most of the day actually. So again, we have 2,000 smoke detectors that we've asked for, and we hope to make it a great occasion. In the meantime, if you'd like to sign up, you can come to the fire station. We have a log sheet there, and then it's, again, right here in the Dorchester over at the table here where you came in. So thank you once again, Chief McCain. Oh yeah, and once again, as Chief McCain said, we have the health and wellness campaign that's coming up. We have an abundance of vendors that's going to be there, and again, we hope to see your face in that place at our firehouse, 14022 Park. It's going to be a very, very great occasion. There's been a lot of vendors that has signed on, and there's still some signed on, so we're actually busting at the seams as far as vendors go. So once again, the health and wellness and the smoke detector campaign, and we thank you.
Thank you, guys. Can we give a round of applause for Deputy Chief Rush, who's been very instrumental in helping get things with the fire department and with the community. I have a community-oriented fire department, which is one of our goals and missions since we've been appointed to the office. So, Rashad, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very important information. All right, moving right along quickly, we have the Chief of Police, Robert M. Collins Jr., who has some very important information for us as well. Please receive Chief Collins.
Thank you, Shad. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few things I'm going to touch on real quick. A few days ago, we put out a community alert. I'm sure everybody's probably seen it about now. I'm not going to comment specifically on the investigation because it wouldn't be right to do so, but I do want to let you know that we've taken some positive step forward. And the reason that we have is because of all the tips that have been called in. So keep calling in those tips. It gets us one step closer every time we get a tip. So that has been a very positive, and that's the definition of community cooperation. So thank you for calling in those tips. The second thing is our K-9 has graduated from his academy. So the handler is Officer DeVries, and his partner, his name is Ronnie. So when you see him out there, give him a wave. He's been working since last Saturday. So he is currently out there right now making an impact in the community. The last thing I want to talk about is National Police Week. Who's ever heard of National Police Week? I see 3 hands. National Police Week starts next week, and what it is, it's a time to the officers that have made the ultimate sacrifice, that have given their lives in connection with their duty. It's that time for them to be honored. So there's a big thing going on in Washington, D.C. In Springfield, there's something going on there too. But just real quick, there's a chance to say hi to a police officer, thank a police officer. Despite what you see out there with the negative things that you see and hear, the vast majority of them, police officers, are here to serve you, and we would make the ultimate sacrifice for a stranger. We would lay down our lives for you. So that's what that week is for, to memorialize those officers that have made the ultimate sacrifice and left their families behind in service of you. So thank you very much. Oh, okay. Well, today is our gun buyback program. It starts at 12 o'clock at the police department. So we want to take guns off the street and curb violence. So anybody that wants to bring in a firearm, we'll give you a $100 gift card. And those replica firearms that look like real firearms, we'll give you a $50 gift card for those too. So police department, 12 to 2. If it's a good turnout, we'll extend those hours. We'll wait for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Also, May 26th is the next Project Connect meeting. I don't know if you all, they've had 2. There was the big kickoff, and then the last one we had, which was very informative, a lot of good information. Many action items came out of that last meeting. And so the next one is May 26th. So make sure that you are keeping up to date with what's going on, either with the Village of Dalton app, the website, Facebook, whatever it is. Also, Project Connect, they have a Twitter account. So for those of you who are on Twitter, you can also get information that way. And the dog's name is Ronnie, spelled R-O-N-Y. Non-traditional spelling. See, so that's already starting something different, okay? At this time, we like to bring forth Trustee Mohammed, who has some very important information dealing with the youth and dealing with exercise. So please receive Chief Mohammed, Trustee Mohammed.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. A week from today, next Saturday, at Melanie Fitness Center from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m., I want to invite all of you. We'll have free health screenings. We have the Chief Operating Officer of the it's the Cook County Board of Health. Yes, Dr. Terry Mason. He'll be talking about men's issues, so most of you men should come out. And I don't want to get too descriptive, but he's a urologist. So those men who've had prostate issues or haven't had your prostate examined, you should come. Not that you're getting your prostate examined. So I want to make that clear. I'm here for my prostate examination. Just thought about a joke, but I won't tell that now. Next Saturday from 10 a.m., we'll have things for the children. So bring your grandchildren, your children, friends. We have face painting. We'll have clowns for the children, the bouncy house. We'll have karate demonstrations. We'll have from Kuksu, which is a Korean form of fighting. We'll have United Schools of Survival, which is Aikido, certain weapons demonstrations that will also be next Saturday. We'll have many vendors. As a matter of fact, I met a vendor today that will be offering health screenings that are free for seniors. That's Miss Williams. Could you just stand up so they see you, Miss Williams? That's Miss Williams, and free screenings, it's primarily for seniors, right, Miss Williams? And there'll be free health screenings. That's 149th in Greenwood here in Dalton, Illinois, celebrating 15 years of service to the community and also membership appreciation. What does that mean? For those of you who are not members, we have special discounts on that day and that day only. So we expect everyone to be there. It will be televised on Dalton's Channel 4, Channel 99, Facebook, VO Dalton, all of the media that we have access to. I believe that's all that I have. I don't want to hold you too long because we have an important presentation. So thank you for your time.
Okay. All right. So at this time, he mentioned you're looking. I see a lot of your eyes going over to the neon green presentation over here. I'd like to call forth Miss Alicia Thomas. Did she go somewhere? Oh, there she is. Okay. They have green on. You have the black. You blended in. To tell us a little bit about what this table is doing, what's going on, and what they're doing here at this table.
Good morning, everyone. I am Alicia Thomas. I'm the Community Outreach Director from Oak Street Health. And who are we? We are known as the happiest place on earth. Who in the room has not heard of Oak Street Health? So today you're going to find out about us. I am from the Blue Island location, located on 127th Street, right by Kedzie, across the street from Eisenhower High School and Burr Oak Bowling Alley. We are a healthcare facility for seniors. I like to call us the country club for seniors because you come in, you see your doctor, but that's not it. We also have a community room so that you can come in, you can relax, you can make new friends. We give you education and entertainment. So we may give you presentations to help you pick the right foods, or kidney screening presentations, healthy heart, arthritis. And then we also will give you some entertainment. So for an example, yesterday we had our monthly birthday party, and we had Miss Shirley King, daughter of the blues, B.B. King's daughter, and she came and gave us a performance. We also do something that everybody likes. We play bingo, but we don't play bingo the traditional way. Miss Sharon has created a musical bingo, and it has all the music that you all love. And that's how we play the music, and then you guess the artist. And once you get every artist on the bingo board, you say bingo. So we have fun things like that. We also help you navigate the Medicare maze. So if you get the Medicare maze book, that 500-page book, and we know some people are using it as a stool for the grandkids to sit on, or it just goes in the garbage. If you have questions, you can come to us, and we will help you navigate the Medicare maze so that you can understand and get the benefits that you have earned. Also, at Oak Street Health, if you have an appointment and you're one of our patients, transportation is never an obstacle. If it's 100 degrees in the Chicago summer, you don't have to get on the bus or worry about your air conditioning not working. If it's 100 below in the winter and it's ice outside, you don't have to worry about those things either. We will come and pick you up. And we also have longer doctor times. So our doctors spend at least 40 minutes with our patients so they can find out what is ailing you, what is your concerns, and how we can fix the problems. So today we're here. We brought with us Jessica. She's one of our medical assistants, and she's going to be giving you all complimentary blood pressure screenings or glucose checks. So if you're interested, you can come over and see Miss Jessica. We also have a sweepstake. So we're going to be giving you all, a lucky winner is going to get the lemonade stand. So if you're interested in entering the sweepstakes, you can come see us or raise your hand, and Sharon and myself, we will come around and see you all. And I also brought some calendars with me so we can let you all know about some events going on in our center. You will see us at various events in Dalton, Illinois, and we also brought you all some information so you can just know about Oak Street Health. And lastly, on Monday, May 23rd, we're going to have a senior appreciation breakfast, and the breakfast is free for seniors. If you're interested in attending, please come and see Sharon and I so that we can get you a ticket for the event. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody that gets Medicare, the red, white, and blue card. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you so much. All right. All right, very good. At this time, I'd like to bring forth Ms. Sandra Wells, who's the director of the South Suburban Office of the Neighborhood Housing Services, and she was very instrumental in assisting us in coordinating the presenters that we have today. She has some important announcements about some things going on as well, so please receive Ms. Sandra Wells.
Well, good morning. I'm with Neighborhood Housing Services. We are a nonprofit housing agency, and part of my responsibility is to bring resources out to the Southland. So when Mr. Reed reached out to me, I said, oh, this is something we need, because I have friends who talk about what's going to happen when they pass on. So this is one of the partnerships we have. I've asked some residents, what would you like to see in your neighborhoods? So I've got some suggestions. There are going to be more presenters. That's what I want to know. So if you have those ideas, reach out to myself or Ashad or Elizabeth, and we will put that together. But the one announcement I want you to know about, we have an event that we do every year. It's called Neighbor Works Day. Now, typically, Neighbor Works Day is a beautification project for a block, and typically in the city. So we've only been out here a few years. So what I do is a flower giveaway. I have over 250 flats. You come to the event, it's a resource fair. We have about 17 vendors, and you stop by their tables and you get a free flat of flowers at the end of your journey. This is happening on June 4th, Saturday, June 4th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. is in East Hazelcrest. That's where our office is. So if you come out, weather's gonna be beautiful, get some information, get a free flat of flowers, and go beautify your yard, okay? And just let me know if there's any other resources you want to hear. We're going to talk about doing some things with the myths about payday loans. That's coming up. And reverse mortgages is coming up. So is there anything else you want? Please let me know. Thank you.
We recently had something dealing with credit repair and the workshops dealing with financial. Well, April was Financial Literacy Month, and we hosted something at the Village, and there was a lot of information that really useful information regarding that. So thank you, Ms. Wells. Okay, ma'am. Okay, yes, we are going to mention those two things. Another thing, since we brought it up, we're going to talk about a couple of events happening today out of the mayor's office. One very important one that we're very excited about. You've probably heard about it. It's been talked about, the 50-20 Youth Employment Initiative for the summer. Many of you saw the press conference. Mayor Rogers announced it. And it's really important, you know, as we talk about the things that the youth need. One of them that always comes up is they need jobs. They need something to do over the summer. And so I think that of all the things that we try to pay for and work for, is there anything more important than making sure that our youth have something to do that gets them off the streets during the summer and keeps them out of trouble? I don't think so. So we know many of you have grandchildren and children who are there. We're getting an incredible response as far as the individuals coming to fill out their forms to be a part of the 50-20 program. We have a youth seminar today at 12, so when we leave here, we'll be dealing with many of the high schoolers from Thornton, Thornridge, that'll be coming here to get information about job skills. They'll be talking to individuals from different companies. So we're really trying to do what's required. If you have a child, someone between the ages of 16 and 24, they can come right to the Village Hall at noon. They can apply for the 50-20 program and also partake in any of the they can get gifts. We have free gifts available and also a lot of good information. So it's not too late. If they didn't have a chance to RSVP, they can still come tomorrow, today at 12. Also, you may have seen the signs and gotten some emails regarding the flea market and farmers market. Now, it's been a little bit slow getting off. Now, people have actually paid for their spots, but because of the weather, and I can't think of a time when we've had such a crazy amount of like 40s, mid 40s with cold rain, but it seems like every day that we have it set up, that's what the temperature is. That's the forecast. Even today, if you look out, this is not the type of day that someone would want to be out for a flea market, but it is open. And those who have come out there have actually made a lot of money. Especially there was someone out there with some food yesterday, and she pretty much just cleaned up. because everyone who drove by dealt with it. So if we're really looking for vendors, if you know of anyone who wants to be a vendor, have them call us right away, or just come over there on Wednesday, Friday, or Saturday to the location on 143rd and Chicago Road, and we'll do what is required to get them set up. It's going to be great, especially when the weather breaks, so they need to get their spot right now. All right, so unless there are any other announcements that we missed. Yes. Oh yeah, I forgot also, Trustee Muhammad, the next week when we're celebrating Melanie's 15-year anniversary, Craig Hodges, the great three-point shooter, is going to be present with us from the Chicago Bulls. Raise your hand if you remember Craig Hodges. I know some of the, nowadays we have different shooters, but Craig Hodges was he was the original three-point marksman, and he's from Chicago. He'll be there. He's in good shape still, even though that was quite some time ago, 20 plus years ago. So he'll be there along with with Dr. Terry Mason, who hosts the show on WVON. And anytime Dr. Terry Mason makes a presentation, I just get a lot out of it. I don't necessarily follow everything he says do, but I get a lot of information. One day I will, probably one day, like a lot of us out here. So at this point, we'll get ready for our main presenter today. We have with us Mario Reed, who is the Director of Public Information, working out of the Office of the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, the Honorable Karen A. Yarborough. I'll let him give you the details about what that office does, but it's one that all of us interact with at one time or another in our daily lives and civic responsibilities. So I'd like for you all to give a warm Village of Dalton Coffee with the Mayor round of applause to Mr. Reed.
Thank you. Thank you, Shaq. So greatest of mornings, all. Well, thank you kindly. So I have with me here today our Director of Information Retrieval, Director Rachel Jordan, and she just so happens to be a resident of this great community of Dalton. So please give her a hand, and I'd personally like to thank her because she works all week in one of the kind of most complicated areas of our office, and she still took time out today volunteering to come in on this morning and give a hand. So thank you, and at which point, as Ashad mentioned, I am with the Honorable Karen A. Yarborough's office, the Cook County Recorder of Deeds. And does anyone have any idea as to what we do? Oh, so before I go further, I do want to let it be known that we encourage participation. So for those who are very participatory in giving out correct answers on today, we are going to be passing out lovely parting gifts. And these gifts are not just any type of just throwaway gifts. We have pre-threaded needle kits as just one option. And we also have business card holders which attach to the back of your cell phone. So in the event that you really have your eye on one of those, give a correct answer, you could be walking out with them. So that is, so any ideas, any volunteers on what it is the Cook County Recorder of Deeds does? Records deeds. Who said records deeds? Nobody gets a gift because someone just blurted out an answer. So yes, we do record deeds, but we do much, much more than record deeds. I am the Director of Public Information and Communications with the Recorder's Office, but in addition to that, I'm also the head of the fraud unit. So last summer, we were out here with the Board of Review, Commissioner Larry Rogers, who's the cousin, I believe, of the mayor. So the nephew of the mayor, so he's very instrumental in this community, and we talked about how to prevent property fraud. So property fraud is something which is extremely prevalent within the south suburbs and all throughout Cook County, but the south side, the south suburbs, and the west side of Chicago have been hit the hardest, and that's when someone steals your home. So a lot of people don't know that someone can steal your home, but it happens very, very frequently. We just had a home stolen in February. It was in November, but we were able to get it back in February, and that home was a $300,000 home in Country Club Hills. So it's very, very rampant in this area. So please, if you have not signed up for our free property fraud alert, you can do that via our website. We have some brochures today that we'll also be able to pass out, so we'll get you that if you need that. But the reason why it is that I'm here today, and I would first like to say thank you all for having us, because I've been to probably about 30 different communities throughout Cook County in doing this workshop, and I've never been to one which has this much energy, and definitely not on a Saturday morning. So I think you all deserve a round of applause, because this is by far one of the most active meetings that I've been to, and I haven't even said a word. So thank you all for being already revved up, because it makes my life much easier. So, but does anyone know what's going to happen to your home after you die? Yes, ma'am.
They're going to give it to the village or the county or something like that, because I have read that somewhere.
You're going to give it to the village or the county?
If I
No.
if I don't sign up, they said something about signing up with the village to secure my home for my relatives after I pass on.
Wowzer. All right, so I've never gotten that answer before, so let's give her something, because that's just incredible. Just incredible. So I have absolutely zero idea what that is about, but it sounds like the village has got a pretty good thing going. So, wowzer. They give it to the trustees, apparently. All right, so I'm not sure on that one, but we'll come back to that. We'll work on getting some answers to that. Yes, ma'am.
It depends.
It depends. That's a good answer. A very legal lawyer answer. So what does it depend on?
What you do before you die.
What you do before you die. So hopefully, without getting too deep into your personal business, what is it that you've decided to do before you die to ensure what happens to your home? So what's going to happen to your home once you pass?
It's within a trust, and it'll go to niece and nephews, since I don't have any children.
Okay, so it's within a trust, and it's going to go to a niece and nephew because of no children. Excellent. So we'll get you a nice parting gift. Any other? Yes, sir.
Well, I have created a will for my estate.
Okay.
I have designated my dependents, my spouse, as people who take over my estate when I pass on.
Okay, so you have a will, and you've named someone that you want to handle all of your affairs once you pass, and you want.
Witness, and I have it notarized.
Okay, so you've executed proper will, a testamentary instrument to ensure that your estate gets where you want it to go. So excellent, that's a great response, and we're going to get you a nice gift as well. So all of those answers are, yes ma'am, one more. Okay, so that's a very good answer. So Director Jordan, we really want to get her one of the nicer gifts that we have. That's a great answer. All right, so I'm not going to take any more. So because unfortunately, I'm sorry. So she said that if you haven't made a will, then what will happen is that it will go into probate, it being your home. So that's a very good answer, and I'm sure some of you all have heard of this artist by the name of Prince. Okay, so Prince unfortunately did not have a will, or at least they haven't found it yet. And as a result, his estate is going to be kind of up for grabs. What's estimated between $150 million to $300 million is going to be up for grabs amongst his loved ones, his friends, his enemies, anybody who wants a stake in that interest. So that's what we're here today to talk about. I am here to tell you about the estate planning process, and not so much from the perspective of what it is that you may or may not know about it, but some of the options that are available to you. So the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, we essentially have zero interaction with the estate process up until it's concluded. So once someone's passed away, and depending upon what their plan was, only once they get to the finish line does our office have any interaction with that individual, whether they're recording a deed or what's known as a release of probate from the probate court. That's the only time that we get involved, and ultimately we have no way of knowing whether or not it's the right person or it's the wrong person. So what I'm telling you about today in no way, shape, or form benefits our office. And I say that because it's a testament to that lady up on the screen, Karen A. Yarbrough, and her commitment to ensuring that the residents of Cook County have information that can benefit them immensely. She gets nothing, no benefit out of sending me out to these workshops and to putting on all of this information. It only benefits you all, not her. So if you ever get a chance to see her, and she was striving to be here, but she had a few other engagements which she had committed to ahead of time, please let her know how thankful you are, because everything I'm going to tell you today will hopefully save you thousands of dollars. And not only you, but your loved ones once you pass away. So it is extremely beneficial information. Now, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and launch into it. I'm going to play a very short video. If you cannot hear, just raise your hand and I'll get some more volume. But has anyone heard of an artist by the name of James Brown? Okay, so the Godfather of Soul, you all are familiar. Well, does anyone know when James Brown passed away? What was that? Christmas? He did pass away on Christmas. How long has it been, though? 2005. Excellent. So you're not going to get a gift, Ashad. Sorry. Nice try. Nice try. But good answer. Good answer. So 2005. So it has been over 10 years that the great James Brown has been gone. However, his estate is still being litigated today. He had a $2 million home at the time he passed that he wanted to be used as a museum to show off all of his accolades and all of his accomplishments, and it has been unoccupied since that date because of the probate matter. So you're going to see a very short video that explains that, and it talks about how having a trust or a will doesn't necessarily mean that everything you want to happen is going to happen. So
James Brown's children and family members met in a courtroom today talking about a settlement involving their father's estate.
If it's approved, attorneys say it would completely resolve 5 of the 6 pending claims to set the will and trust aside. News 12's Christy Etheridge had the only camera in the courtroom today as the judge gathered information to make his ruling.
The settlement includes Brown's 4 adult children, Larry, Yama, Venetia, and Deanna. It would resolve a big part of the litigation surrounding James Brown's estate, but it still needs a judge's approval. Deanna Brown Thomas spoke exclusively to us about why she wants this settlement to be approved.
Your Honor, this has been going on for 9 years. I know this court is tired of it.
After 9 years of battling in court, there's finally the possibility of a settlement in the James Brown estate.
Now that we have pretty much come to a good agreement with the estate and the estate lawyers, we're ready to settle this because this will cost the estate as well as us a lot of money to continue.
Money that could have gone to help needy children get an education through the I Feel Good trust Brown set up in his will. Litigation could drain that fund.
No one wants to see the estate depleted. That's why we brought this case to the court.
In the settlement, the 4 adult children would still keep their right to the personal property Brown wanted them to have. Since there are 6 children, they'd each get 1/6. It would also pay each of them $37,500 and keep Brown's estate completely intact. There's a clause that assures they'll cooperate with the estate and trust in any and all continuing matters. The catch: the interim clause would go away. That's the part of James Brown's will that says anyone who contests the will gets nothing. But not everyone agrees.
The bottom of the argument is, Your Honor, they have to enforce the interim clause.
That's what the other side says, namely 2 of Brown's other sons, Terry and Daryl. This is Daryl's attorney.
We believe that sends a terrible message that you are rewarding people who, for 9 years, for no good reason, disregard the wishes of their father, yet do nothing for people who support the will.
Every one of those is clear on what James Brown's intent was as far as his estate plan. He wanted to leave his personal property to his 6 kids, he wanted to leave and educate his grandchildren, and he wanted to leave money for the needy kids in Georgia and South Carolina. That has held consistent in everything we have seen in this case since 1997.
But if they go forward with trying to enforce that clause, it means the lawsuit would have to continue with no clear end in sight. Now it's in the judge's hands. And before he adjourned today, the judge said he would be making a ruling soon. Now, one thing to note, if this settlement goes through, this is not the end. The lawsuits around Tommy Ray Heine will still go on either way. And in fact, in the settlement, it specifically states even though the children will cooperate with the estate, they will not cooperate with Tommy Ray.
Okay. So, you all may have noticed that in the news segment, it mentioned that James Brown had both a will and a trust. So both of the kind of avenues that we've come to know and believe that we should take in order for our state to get where we wanted to go to didn't accomplish it for James Brown. Now, James Brown has had a very large and lucrative estate, and he took the necessary steps that he thought were available to ensure that all of this chaos would not happen, and yet it still did. Now, while I believe all of you are quite successful in your own right, I don't think any of you probably have the kind of estate that James Brown did, and you probably won't have to worry about your children fighting as vociferously over that estate. But it could happen, and it does. And it happens all of the time. In our office, we get those phone calls because people say, is there anything that I can do to get my mother's house, even though she passed without a will? Or she passed with a will, and now I have to go through the probate process. So, for those who don't know, when you have a will, that will is going to go through the probate process so long as you have real property, and depending upon how it's been established or how it's been set up. If you have a trust, then potentially you're going to need to ensure that your trustee knows how to move all of your assets over to your loved ones to ensure it doesn't go into probate. But the reason why I'm here today is to talk about a brand new law which came into effect on January 1st of 2012, and that law is called the Residential Transfer on Death Instrument Act. That term, transfer on death instrument, is the last definition in that run of definitions on the brochure, which everyone should have. And if you don't have a brochure, please raise your hand. We'll come and get you one. But that brochure is an invaluable brochure because it includes information that is going to ensure that the estate planning process is kind of demystified and provides you with information to not only start the conversation, but hopefully finish it. But the Residential Transfer on Death Instrument Act is probably one of the single best things that has happened to the state of Illinois since the last 60 or 70 years as it relates to the probate and the estate planning process, because it can save you thousands of dollars and ensure that you don't have to worry about your home not going where you want it to go to. So we're going to go ahead and launch in, and this presentation is going to follow the steps of that brochure. So the first step of any good plan is to first determining where you are now. When you go to the mall, you look at the directory and they got that big red dot that says you are here. Well, that's what it is that this first step is all about, is determining where you are in terms of the estate planning process. And in order to do that, you have to determine first, how do you own your property? So has anyone ever heard of a term called joint tenancy by the entirety? And our good lawyer friend here, Clerk Dugan, unfortunately you're not going to qualify for the parting gifts as well because you are an expert. And as full disclosure, I am an attorney as well. And I also, right now, I just want to pause to tell you all that I absolutely love the South Suburbs. So I'm originally from Park Forest, the home of Craig Hodges. And if you all have ever been through Park Forest, you may have seen a house that's decorated with Chinese motif with lots of flags out in front. And so that is the house in which I grew up in, and that is the home my parents still live in. So I am from the South Suburbs. I absolutely love the South Suburbs, so my commitment lies here. This is another reason I love doing them here in Dalton. So, well, that tenancy by the entirety is one way that property can be earned. Has anyone ever heard of joint tenants in common? Joint tenancy? We got a joint tenant in common over here. I imagine we have probably lots more all throughout the audience. So, and has anyone ever heard of tenants in common? Okay, so we're going to explain that stuff because that's how you determine how you own your property. Before you can set up a proper plan, you need to know how you own your property so as to establish that proper plan. So, does anyone know how you can find out how you own your property? Go to your deed. Excellent. So, who knows where their deed is? On your shelf, in your closet, in a shoebox. It's also at the Cook County Recorder of Deeds. So in the event that you can't find it in the back of the closet in that shoebox because you haven't looked at it for the last 25 years, because that's when you bought the house and would have gotten the deed, you have an easy alternative, and that easy alternative is to go to the best website in the world. And that website just so happens to be cookrecorder.com. And I am not biased, trust me. We've had studies done. cookrecorder.com, and it's on that brochure. So right on the front of that brochure, cookrecorder.com is listed. I believe it's right up at the top or at the bottom, but that's the website you go to, and you can take a look at your deed. Not only can you take a look at your deed, but you can also check your chain of title. And it's important to do so to make certain that no one else has already stolen your house. What information? For the deed? Would you like to check your deed? So we at the Recorder of Deeds office, we have a very great pricing structure, and our pricing structure is usually free. It's usually free. So if you are okay with free, then you will love cookrecorder.com, because the good majority of information that I'm going to cover today is free. So does anyone like free? Raise your hand if you like free. Excellent. So then you all love the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, because all of this information that we're talking about, as well as how to check your deed, is free. So once you get to cookrecorder.com, you're going to click on the tab that says Search Public Records. And then all you need to know is look for the big magnifying glass, because that's how you're going to be able to get into your chain of title. Once you do so, you're then going to get a screen that looks like this one on the right. And each time you're going to know that you're at the Cook County Recorder of Deeds office, because you'll always see Karen A. Yarbrough smiling. If you don't see her, you're at the wrong place. Up at the top is going to ask you for your 14-digit PIN number. Does anyone know where you can find your 14-digit PIN number? On your tax bill. And before we go any further, I want to make it certain we do nothing with taxes. So if you are upset about your taxes, it is not because of us. It is because of Maria Pappas's office, as well as Joseph Barrios' office, not Karen Yarbrough. We do nothing with taxes. So please, if you are upset about it, do not hate us. So once you enter into that 14-digit PIN number, you're then going to click search, and then it's going to bring up a screen that looks like this one at the bottom, that's going to have all of these different, your PIN number, as well as all these different document numbers, and it'll have some names. This is your chain of title. This is the singular most important thing for you to take a look to ensure that you own your property. How you're going to do so is you're going to look for the most recently recorded deed. It doesn't matter which type of deed it is. It can be a trustee's deed. It can be a warranty deed. It can be a quitclaim deed. Whatever type of deed it is, you're going to locate that, and then you're going to make sure that your name is listed under the first grantee column. If your name is not listed under the first grantee column, you don't own your home. Someone has stolen it, and it happens all the time. So please check your chain of title, make certain that you are the owner, and then once you've done so, then you can click on that document, and it's going to bring up the physical deed itself. You're going to look in the first paragraph of that document. Somewhere in there, it's going to explain how you own your property. It'll either say, if you purchase your home with someone else, it'll either say as joint tenants in common, it'll say tenancy by the entirety only if you were married, or it will say tenants in common. Those three terms, one of those three should be included in that first paragraph. However that is, that's going to determine your next step. So, if you purchased your home as a single individual, you own your home in fee simple. And what that fee simple means is that you own all of it. You can sell it, you can give it away, you can lease it, you can do anything you want with it, including lift it up over your head and pose for one of our slides. And if you choose to do so, please give us a call so we can take a picture of you and put you on our presentation. Now, the other way in which you likely own your property is as something that's called joint tenants in common with a right of survivorship. Now, some of you said that you've kind of heard about that. This is the most likely way that if you purchase your home with someone, you're going to own your property. And what that means is that both of you own the entire property together as joint tenants. You have the capabilities to come and go as you please. You have the capabilities to take out mortgages, get liens against the property, get judgments against the property. All of those things you have the capabilities to do, but you have the capability to technically do that on an individual basis. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of kind of legal jargon nonsense, but what it basically means is that if you're married and you have a husband, and that husband has had his eye on a brand new boat, because it's summertime and it's boating season, but you all don't have boat money, because not all of us do have boat money. Your number one asset usually is your home. And it's because you've been paying off the mortgage over all this time. You might have gotten to the finish line and gotten a release. Well, now you have what's called equity in your home, and that equity can be utilized. There are banks all across Cook County who are just waiting for your husband to walk in and say, I want a home equity line of credit so that I can go out and buy myself a brand new boat. And then they'll say, well, you know what? Don't you own your home with the wife? Say, yes, I do, but she's not a fan of this boat. And she doesn't think it's a good idea for me to get it. So is there any way we can avoid bringing her into the conversation? And they'll say, well, and Attorney Dugan's shaking her head no, but we've had numerous cases where some of these banks that are less reputable say, you know what? We're going to give you that boat money. Never mind the fact that your wife didn't sign off on it. Never mind the fact that, because it's joint tenants in common with the right of survivorship, which technically doesn't mandate that both parties have to agree in order to encumber that chain of title. So that's one of the drawbacks of joint tenants in common. One of the advantages, and the biggest advantages, is that when that husband dies because the wife found out about the boat and she kills him, and then she ends up on an episode of Snap, but she didn't get caught, her husband's interest in the property automatically transfers over to her. And now she owns the property in fee simple in its entirety all by herself. So that's the good thing. When she gets out of jail. But she was clever. She was good. She said it was a boating accident. So at which point they were never able to uncover it. So she was good. Don't kill your husband. That's a takeaway from today. Don't kill your husband. That's a takeaway from today. Don't kill your husband. If he gets a boat, yell at him, do all of that. Don't kill him, please. The Recorder of Deeds office does not sanction that. So that's how joint tenancy in common works. You both own it. When one person passes, their interest in the property automatically transfers over to you. Nothing you need to do, no paperwork that has to be filled out. It automatically goes to you. However, there are a few instances where future purchasers or lenders, they want to see proof that your husband didn't just run off to Bermuda in that new boat, and he's waiting to come back later to say, I didn't agree to sell this house or take out this loan. When that comes up, you then need to get something that's called a deceased joint tenancy affidavit. And that term is also included in that brochure. And what the deceased joint tenancy affidavit does is it tells the rest of the world that your spouse has passed away. Does anyone know why you'd want to tell the world that your spouse has passed away? You get another man, so that's a good idea. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? You don't want his debts. You don't want his debts. So that'd be a good thing. Unfortunately, that's not always optional. Sometimes you guys, because you're one, so you're taking on some of those debts, but that would be a good idea. But let's say that you decided to sell your home. Your husband passed, and then now you don't want to stay in this home because of the fact that it just brings up all these memories of when your husband got the boat and you guys made up and all that good stuff. So you want to sell the home, right? So the next purchaser, they are going to want to have proof that your husband is in fact dead, and he's not just off at Bermuda and going to come back 2 years later and say, what are you doing in my house? I still own it. So that's one of the reasons why you'd want to tell the rest of the world that your husband has passed. Another reason you'd want to tell the world that your spouse has passed is because of the fact that you want to get some money, some equity for this property. And they want proof that your husband is in fact, or your spouse is no longer with us. So they're going to need proof, and the only way to go about giving them that legitimate proof, according to their standards, is you need to complete a deceased joint tenancy affidavit. Now, today we're going to have kind of a theme, and that theme is that there are 3 ways to do most of the things that we're talking about today. And as I mentioned, I am an attorney, so I am in no way, shape, or form going to disparage us attorneys, because we work hard and there are a lot of great attorneys. But because of the fact that we work so hard, we have to get paid. And I'm sure Attorney Dugan would agree with me that our services are not cheap. And it's because of the fact that we do such a great job, right? Absolutely. So whenever it is that you want to get kind of any of this work done, you have 3 options. And one of those options is that you can hire an attorney. And when you hire an attorney, what comes with that? Money, dollars. because you got to pay for the services. So the first option to get this form prepared is that you can hire an attorney, and then at which point, whatever it is that they're going to charge you, and then they'll get it recorded for you. That will make sure that the rest of the world knows that your spouse is no longer with us. It needs to be accompanied by a certified copy of the death certificate. What's that? Death certificate, yes. So this form of the deceased joint tenancy affidavit needs to be accompanied by the death certificate, certified copy that you can get from David Orr's office, the clerk. The second option is that there are some stationery stores which sell this form. There aren't many, but they do exist. Atlas is one that's downtown that offers it. This form normally runs anywhere from about $20 to $30, and you can fill it out yourself. You have that option. It's pretty straightforward. It's simply a case of including information you can find on your deed. The third option is that you can go to the best website in the world, which is Cook County Recorder of Deeds, and it's cookrecorder.com, and then you can go into the forms section and you can download it. Guess how much this form is going to cost you from them? Free! So at which point you go, download the form, fill it out, and then bring it in to record, and then you're done. Just that simple. Now, the second way that you can own property is something that's called tenancy by the entirety. And tenancy by the entirety is still relatively new in Illinois. But it's a great thing because, one, it's only available to people who are married. So it's one of those benefits that come with taking that oath and getting married and having those vows. The great thing about it is that remember earlier how we said that if your husband had his eye on a boat and he wanted to get some money for that boat, he could do so without your approval? Tenancy by the entirety ensures that that's not possible. So, if your husband has been eyeing a boat, check your deed and make sure you're tenants by the entirety, and then you don't have to worry about it because he can't get that boat without your approval. The other great thing about it is that let's say that your wife is driving around uninsured because she didn't like the little gecko from Geico, and then she gets into a car accident and gets sued, and then there's a judgment against her. Unlike in the case of joint tenants in common, where that judgment would go against both of you and your home, now, as tenants by the entirety, that judgment can't go against your property. So it protects the home from one person doing anything bad whatsoever and ensures that both people have to agree to anything that's happening to it. The other great part about it is that tenancy by the entirety ensures that when one of the spouses passes, their interest in the property still goes to the other person. So it has all the same protections in terms of ensuring that your property goes to your wife or your husband once you pass without having to do anything. So that's the great thing about tenancy by the entirety, and that's the second way that you can own that property. The third way you can own that property is as something that's called tenants in common. Now this is something that you really want to check for, because if your home is set up like this, then you really need to kind of decide if you want to keep it that way or if you want to change it. And the reason why is because as tenants in common, each one of those people who have purchased the home own a defined share. So let's say that you and a business partner get together and decide that you want to purchase a $100,000 property. But because you're a much better business person than your partner, you bring $60,000 to the table. You're this red one. I think it looks just like all of you. Your business partner brings $40,000, and that's your business partner's share here, off to the left. So now what that means is that when you pass away, instead of your 60% share going to your business partner, your 60% share goes to your heirs. So if you had 2 children, instead of your share going to your business partner, it now passes directly to your children, depending upon how you've set up your plan. And now your business partner has just become tenants in common with your 2 children, with whom he's despised since the day those children were born. And it doesn't matter that he wanted nothing to do with your children. He wanted to do business with you. The fact that the 2 of you all were tenants in common ensured that your interest, instead of going to your business partner, goes to your 2 children who he hates because they're irresponsible. Because kids are irresponsible. That's what they do. And because of the fact that they're now all tenants in common, they can sell their interest in the property or they can take out a mortgage, they can take out a home equity line credit, even though the business partner doesn't agree to it. And that's the reason why it's so important you find out if your property is owned as tenants in common, because it has some dangers and some pitfalls that can come up. The other thing is that a lot of times when people own property in this way, their interest is going to pass on to their children. But their children usually don't know about it up until they get a $10,000 bill from the city of Chicago because the water was never shut off and it's been used by who knows who during the time period. And that happens all the time. We get calls at our office where people who say, hey, my uncle died, and at which point I just got a bill saying that I owe $4,000 for the water bill on it. What's this all about? Well, it's based on the fact that you were named as an heir and the property has passed to you, so the city of Chicago wants their money. And they're going to try and get it from someone who's alive because it works out better than getting it from someone who's dead and usually doesn't have all that much. So when that happens, there's a process for that. If you get a bill that says that you owe money or you're connected in some way to a property for which you've never been lived in or had anything to do with it, it could be because that property passed to you via the inheritance statute or the probate act. So in order to get rid of that property from your name and make sure that you're not showing up to court having to pay $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, you have to do something that's called a renunciation. It's also known as a disclaimer of interest form. Now, there are 3 ways to go about getting this form. The first way is you can call an attorney. And when you do so, you're going to have to pay that money, whatever it is, and then at which point they'll get it taken care of for you. The second way is that you can go to a stationery store. This form is at even fewer stationery stores because of the fact that it's a little bit more nuanced and it has a lot of additional work that kind of needs to be done with it, but you can get it and you can fill it out yourself. Because this form only comes into play when you're in trouble usually, it costs a little bit more. Supply and demand. It's the way of America. So this form normally costs about $30 to $40, depending upon where you find it, and then you can fill it out and get it recorded. The third option is that you can go to the best website in the world, cookrecorder.com, and guess how much this form is going to cost you by? It's free. So at which point you can go there, click on the forms, and then look for a disclaimer of interest, and you can download it if you ever need it. Hopefully you never do, but in the event you do, it's there for you. Now, while you're figuring out how you own your property, the other best thing to do is to determine if your home is underwater. And we've had a lot of rain here as of late, and hopefully your home does not look like this literally. If it does, you should be there and not here. But this is a bit of a metaphor for whether or not your home, the value of it is less than what the outstanding mortgage is. So I think you all kind of understand what being underwater on your mortgage is about. And it's important that you find out if you are. Because if you are, there's a chance your children don't want that house. Because if it's only worth $50,000 and you owe $200,000, it's not something that they probably want to take on because they probably have their own debts. So it's important for you to find that out and make sure that you have that conversation with your heirs or your beneficiaries, whomever those may be, so that way, before you give them this toxic property, they can say, you know what, Mom, you can go ahead and give that one to the village, like the woman was saying over here. Go ahead and pass to the village or the county or whomever else really wants this underwater property, but we'll take a pass. The other important thing is that you need to find out if there are any outstanding judgments, liens, or creditors out there. Now, a lot of times people say, well, I'm certain that I have no liens. And then they come into our office, we run their chain of title, and they've got 3 liens. And the reason why is because one of the scams that property fraudsters do is they claim that they came to your house and worked up an agreement where you were going to pay them $50,000 to do the windows. But by the way, they forgot to tell you about that. And then they just come into our office, record that $50,000 lien, and now it's on your chain of title. Once you go to sell the home, that's usually when it is that it gets discovered. but oftentimes it's been a while, so it's tough to find that out, and then it's a mess in terms of getting that untangled. So that's why it's so important you check your chain of title, because even if you think it's clean, it may not be clean. So all of these things are things that you want to do as a part of step one. And I know that that was an extremely lengthy step one. It was, but it's important because that is the biggest part of the estate planning process. Now, we have now moved to step two. And once you get to step two, it's a great idea to consult with the licensed attorney because of the fact that they are the experts in the field. They're the ones who do this regularly and understand all this legal jargon. But at a minimum, even if you don't consult with an attorney, have the conversation with your heirs, your loved ones, or your beneficiaries, because the number one problem that we see happening is that people who have a will or a trust, they never tell their loved ones where these documents are. And if your loved ones don't know where your will is, you don't have a will. If your trustee doesn't know where your trust agreement is, you technically don't have a trust because they can't execute it. They can't do the things that you want them to do. So it's imperative that if you're going to have a will, if you're going to have a trust, tell somebody where it is. We recommend making multiple copies and disseminating them to everybody who's involved. So that way, in case one of those irresponsible children loses it, the responsible ones do still have it, and they can ensure that it gets taken care of. Yes, sir.
So we can't file a will with your office?
That is a great question. So please give him another parting gift. Please get him another one. So the question is, can you file the will with our office? So Karen A. Yarbrough and her team of just tremendous minds thought to themselves, it would be a great idea for you to bring your will down to us and let us record it. So even if it got lost, because paper does get lost, you would still be able to have it on record and your loved ones could go and get everything done. Ernie Banks, has anyone ever heard of Ernie Banks? Okay, so Ernie Banks' family ran into this issue. The will, which they know Ernie Banks had, they weren't able to retrieve it. So they went through a lot of problems. So the recorder said, hey, we should have a system where people can come and record their wills with us. John Merkovic, our Deputy Recorder Communications, which is an incredible mind. He's written several laws and gotten them passed with his lobbying efforts. He went down to Springfield and said, hey, I think this is a great idea. Please, legislators, support this. All of them said, yeah, we think it's a great idea as well. When it came time to vote on it, they turned it down. They said, sorry, as great of an idea it is, we're not going to go ahead and extend that at this point. The reasoning, John's still to this day trying to figure it out. We're hoping to reintroduce this upcoming legislative season, but to answer your question, no, you cannot come into our office and get it recorded. We wanted to do so, but it didn't get passed, so now we cannot do so. However, as an alternative, you can always go to the probate division, which is downtown Chicago in the Daly Center, go up to the 12th floor, probate floor, and then go to the wills counter, and you can file it there ahead of time. The only drawback to that is that if you don't tell your heirs that you did so, they have no way of knowing it's there unless they go and check after you've passed. So there is an alternative. We personally don't think that it's as great as recording it with our office because it's the public record and it's on the chain of title so anyone can find it, but we're hoping to get that passed. I see two hands. I'm going to take these two questions, then we're going to move on. Yes, ma'am.
What other items can you record with the recorder's office other than divorce?
So you can record tons of items. So that would take about 2 hours for me to go through just on that. But those documents, essentially, if you go to our website, you can search by document type, and it'll show you all, I think it's like 262 different documents that you can record. So you can take a look. But it's essentially items that pertain to property, just not a will. Just yeah, that's a good point. So, yes, ma'am. To file your will with the probate division, you have to go downtown because the only probate division for all of Cook County is just downtown. There are no probate divisions anywhere else in Cook County. So, now we're ready to talk about that last will and testament. So there are some pros and cons to everything that we're going to discuss today. Some have more cons than pros, and some have more pros than cons. The will. That is something that I'm sure all of us have heard about, right? We've all heard of a will. Well, it's actually a last will and testament, and it's how you tell the rest of the world what you want to happen to your home or your property. So what are the three biggest things that you probably want to put in a will? What items do you want to have in this will that you want to go to your loved ones? Your house, your savings, stocks and bonds, pension plan, your silver. You got some good silver apparently, some really good silver. Your cars. All right, so usually what we've found is that people, the three biggest items that they include in a will that they want to go to their loved ones is their house, their cars, and their checking account, savings account, all of that financial stuff. So those three instruments or items are usually the things that people say they want. So when you have a will, what that means is that you have told the rest of the world where you want those items to go. But in order for them to get there, it has to go through probate. So does anyone know what, so we talked about probate and where it is, but what that means is that your loved ones have to go to the probate division, hire an attorney, and then wait that process out. Does anyone have any ideas about how long that process takes? A year? Over a year. So if it takes a year, you have a great attorney. You should pay them. But so yes, over a year. On average, we've seen that it runs about 18 to 24 months. What's that? They said, so they, I hate that term they because sometimes we get called the theys. So there's a process in place, and the probate process requires all kinds of legal things happen, such as notice. Everybody needs to know that you passed so that if they have a claim to your estate, they need to be able to come in and then get their due. So there's a reason why it takes so long, but it does take a long time and it does cost. And sometimes it can cost as much as anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 to litigate that estate because you have to go through the process. So by having a will, it still leads to your estate having to pay $5,000 to $10,000 potentially. Depending upon who drafted that will, you might have had to pay for that as well. So you came up with the idea to have a will so as to ensure that your estate gets to where you want it to be. But it still costed you money, right? And that's probably not what it is that you want. Who wants to pay all this money? So that's the biggest drawback of the will, is that it's going to cost you. The other big drawback is that, as we mentioned earlier, it's a piece of paper. And that piece of paper oftentimes does get lost. If it gets lost, then at which point you're starting from scratch. Your loved ones now have to kind of fight it out, and it's up to them to figure out how your estate is going to be divvied up. So that's the biggest drawback of the will, but it's good because you at least have a plan in place and hopefully can help your loved ones start the process. Now, the second option is a trust. And the young lady over here says she has a trust. So if you don't mind, who's your trustee? So probably Chicago Title Company. Okay, so how a trust works is very similar. It's basically, if you think about it, a contract between you and whoever it is that you trust in. And hopefully you trust in somebody this studious, just like this guy, who looks every document over with a magnifying glass and makes sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. Because that person is going to become the singular most important person for your estate. What you do is you decide what you want to happen to all of your assets, and then you name a trustee. It's usually somebody you can trust. That person, once you pass, is then going to divvy up all of your assets based on what it is that you've said you want to happen, and they're going to ensure that they get to where they need to be. Now, the biggest problem with this is that, so I go over the good part. The good part is that this normally avoids probate. So if you have a trust, typically it will avoid the probate process. So it's going to save your loved ones the headache of having to deal with going to court and all that other good stuff. However, the drawback is that it places all of the responsibility on that trustee. So for most people who have trustees, they name their kids because they say, you know what, I can trust my oldest daughter and she does a great job. I believe that she's a trustworthy person to name as my trustee. Who here has ever named one of their children as a trustee? Okay, so we have a couple people. Sometimes people name their friends, their mothers or fathers if they precede them in death. The biggest problem with that is that who here has a child who knows how to transfer property from a trust to an individual? No one. Nobody, because kids don't know how to do that. They don't teach you that in high school, unfortunately. And that's the big problem. If your trustee doesn't know how to transfer all of this property from the trust to your loved ones, they're going to have to call somebody who does. And who do you think those people are? Lawyers. And are they going to do it for free? What? You don't do it for free, Attorney Dugan? Close? Okay. So I'm going to call Attorney Dugan. But most attorneys don't do it for free. So what ends up happening is that even though you went through all of these lengths to set up a trust, it still ends up being a case where now they have to contact a lawyer and then still pay to have your estate handed out. So you came up with this great plan, said you're going to have a trust, and then now you're going to dole out all those assets, but the person you named as a trustee doesn't know how to do so. So you end up having to pay, or your loved ones do, to get all of the assets out of the trust to where they need to be, the beneficiaries. Do you have a question, ma'am?
Well, we have a trust company, a company that set up the trust, and they will take care of all of that.
Excellent. So that's a great point.
It was expensive to set it up, but there are no issues. My daughter has a phone number. She calls it. They come in and do all the transfers.
All right, so that's a great point. So what she said is that they have a trust company. So not just an individual, but a trust company. She also said that it was expensive to set it up initially. And then do you pay any annual fees? No annual fees. When it comes time for that trust company to dole out those assets, are there any expenses at that point?
No, everything is completely paid for, and they call me once a year. We go over everything to make sure nothing.
Excellent. So yours was probably pretty expensive then. So it probably wasn't pretty expensive. It was probably really expensive. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I don't like paying $10. So if it was more than $10, then at which point it was probably a little bit more expensive than I was interested in paying. So that is an option. For most trusts, you have to pay an annual fee. Do you pay an annual fee for yours? What is that annual amount? Yep, so we found that it ranges anywhere from about $50 is the lowest, but apparently there's one out there that's free. You just pay all up front, all the way up to a couple $100s. So you're paying this annually. And because of the fact that you're going to live for another 70 years, because you look great, I suspect that at which point you're then going to have paid out, several thousands of dollars by the time it comes time to actually give out these assets. So you've paid all of this money, whether you pay it up front or you kind of subsidize it or over this period of time that you're alive, you're going to pay all this money. So the trust is good in so much that it may avoid probate, because in the event that trust agreement gets lost, or if someone questions whether or not you gave all of those assets to the nieces and nephews, just like in the case of James Brown, it can be challenged, and then at which point it still has to go to probate court. So the whole purpose of setting up a trust was to avoid probate, but if someone challenges it, it can still end up in probate, just like in James Brown's case. So at this point, I'm sure you all are thinking, this guy sucks. All he's done is given us bad news. Just bad news, nothing good. Well, now is the time that I'm hopefully going to go from being terrible to being good, because we're going to tell you about the ways to ensure that you don't need to document with a will or with the trust in order to ensure that your house, your cars, and your checking and savings accounts go to exactly who you want them to go to, And all of those forms and instruments are free. Without probate. Never go through probate. Never set a foot in probate. Your loved ones will never go to probate. They will never set foot there. They will never have to pay thousands of dollars to go through that process. So the first way, so the question is, what should I do? Well, you all should do these next 3 things if you want to. Because ultimately this decision is up to you all, but it's a great idea to consider doing as much. So, the first item is something that's called a transfer on death instrument, also abbreviated as a TODI. Transfer on death instrument. That name or that form is listed on the bottom of your definition section. If you set up this transfer on death instrument, this document will ensure that once you pass away, your home goes to whomever you name in this form automatically. All they have to do is come into any of our locations, any of our satellite offices, including Markham, and then say, I want this home. They have to bring in a certified copy of the death certificate, and then it automatically transfers to them. They don't even have to pay transfer taxes. Automatically transfers right over. So this form will ensure that your home never goes through probate. Now, like with all the other forms that we've talked about, there are 3 ways to go about getting it. The first way is that you can hire an attorney. And then there are some attorneys, as I'm sure Attorney Dugan will attest to, that don't even know about this, because this is brand new. This just came into effect January 1st of 2012. So this is brand new. So that's one option. Make sure that that attorney is familiar with how to prepare one, but that's an option. The second option is that you can go to a very select few stationery stores and you can get it. And I mean very select few. Atlas is the only one that we know about. But they're going to charge you a little bit more. It's anywhere from usually $50 to $70 depending upon when it is that you go in to get it. The third option, which just became available, is download it from cookrecorder.com for free. For free. This 2-page document, which is as straightforward as it gets. You download it, you fill in your PIN number, so she has it. So she came prepared. So she has the form, and you simply put in your PIN number, your legal description, which you can find usually on previous deeds or documents like that, or you can get it from the clerk's office. You put in who you want your property to go to. And you can list as many beneficiaries as you want. You can list 1, 2, 3, 300. If you decide to do so, just put another piece of paper with it indicating who you want it to go to. You go with 2 witnesses before a notary. You have it signed and notarized, and then you record it. You can record this at our Markham location. Once you've recorded it, you're done. You now never have to worry about your home ever going through the probate process. You never have to worry about your loved ones having to pay thousands of dollars to get it from probate, and at which point all it costs is right now the $50 recording fee. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
You know, the good point about that is that you don't have to, you own your house. They can't come in and say, Dad's sick now.
That is a great point. So the other great thing about the transfer on death instrument is that you still retain ownership. Unlike in some other types of scenarios where you deed it to someone else, add a child on, or potentially give it to a nursing home or something like that, it ensures that you're still the owner all the way up until your death. So if you qualify for senior exemptions for your taxes, you still get that benefit. Any of the other benefits, if you qualify for the senior freeze, that still stays in place because you are still the owner of the property. So this singular form ensures that you not only own the home all the way up until your death, but whomever you name as the beneficiary automatically has it transferred to them with no hoops for them to jump through except for taking in the death certificate and accepting it. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Wells. Hold on. What happens if you change your mind? Great question. This item by law is what's called a revocable instrument, meaning that if little Johnny starts messing up, and at which point you decide, little Johnny, you're not going to get this house, we're going to give it to little Susie, you can always come back and change it. You simply need to fill out the form again, and indicate that now you want it to go to Susie instead of Johnny, and then at which point that takes care of it. Just that simple. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. If I get sick, have to go into a nursing home, and I don't want them to take my property, how do I avoid that?
So that's one of the other great things about this form. This form acknowledges that you want for this home to go to your loved ones. So it impedes the nursing home from trying to get in and take it. I saw there was one more hand in the back. I guess we took, yes, ma'am? Yes. So the question is, when I say that you can put as many people on there as you want to, so the question is, if let's say, for instance, you want to put 4 people on as beneficiaries, is that a good thing? Or should you put 1 person on and then let that person kind of serve as essentially like the trustee? So that's when you get into the details and the weeds of things, and that's when it's a good idea to sit down and consult with an attorney to kind of talk that out. But ultimately, it's up to whatever it is that you think is best, because it's your decision. So all 4 people would need to show up, and at which point kind of accept it, because they have to fill out an affidavit saying that I want to accept it. Because just because you have this property going to them doesn't mean they have to accept it. If they never show up within the 2-year statutory period, then it will automatically go back to the estate. So someone can make the decision to say, you know what, I don't want that toxic property, even though I'm named as a beneficiary, and then they just don't show up, and after 2 years, they no longer are responsible for it. It depends. If they try and sell it within that 2-year period, yes. If they wait until after the 2-year period and then 2 of them didn't show up, then only the 2 who did show up would need to do so. So it's a case, and that's why it's so important that you have the conversation with your heirs, so that way you can kind of strategize what it is that you want to have happen. But the best thing about it is that they don't have to go through hoops to get the property, and they then can make those decisions right away. If you pass, they can come into our office the next day, all 4 of them say they want it, and then right then and there, they can sell it the next day because they own it. So that's the virtue of it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have 3 quick questions. I want to back up. The Tenancy By entirety, is that for married people only?
Yes. In Illinois, only married couples can take advantage of that.
Okay, and my next question is, this TDOI, is it for any assets or on the home?
So it's a TODI, transfer on death instrument, and it is only available for residential property. So I want to make sure to stress that, because if you own commercial property, you know, stores in downtown Dalton, you can't use this to transfer that. It's only for residential. If you have other residential properties that you rent out or you own, you can use it for multiple, but you can't use it for commercial. It's only for residential properties.
Okay, not cars and checking accounts.
So we're going to get to those two. So those are going to be our next ones.
Then my last question is, the TODI, if I understood you correctly, you insinuated that it supersedes nursing homes getting the property. So I thought, like, when you went into a nursing home, you signed that stuff over. That prevents it?
So it's going to depend on what that specific contract is. So 2 people can always, or 2 entities can always contract away their rights. So if they decide that I want to put up my house as collateral, then at which point the terms of that contract could potentially override that transfer on death instrument. However, the transfer on death instrument creates what's called a presumption, and then depending upon the specific language of that contract, that's going to kind of determine it. But in most instances, the contract won't be able to trump the transfer on death instrument unless they've taken some great lengths to do so. So it doesn't so much as supersede, but it impedes. All right? Yes.
What if you have property given to like the property is with, in common, but it has a survivorship, which means it passed all the way down to the last person living, they get the property. Is there any way that you can get around that? Can you buy your sisters and brothers out, or how does that work?
So the question is that if you are tenants in common with your siblings and there's a right of survivorship which attached to it, which basically means that when one person dies, it reverts to the surviving people. Can you buy them out? Yes. The answer is yes. The tenants in common, you can always buy out those other tenants, and it's just a matter of you all deciding how you want to go about doing so. So you do have that option, and it's simply a case where you work out the details between yourselves. Yes, ma'am. There was a question over here. Yes. So the transfer on death instrument does have to be notarized. So if you get the chance, you can go to our website, but the second page has the place for the notary seal, and then it also has to be signed with 2 witnesses present. So you need to have 2 witnesses before a notary in order to execute this document. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, on the transfer of death form, if there is money owed on the house, can it be transferred? Can you use this form? And if so, if you transferred it to an only child, would you also be transferring the debt?
So the question is, if you owe a mortgage still on the property, does that transfer, or can it transfer as well, or anything, any debts? And then is the debts is now the child going to be responsible for it? So the answer is yes. If there's a mortgage, then the bank, they don't care that you passed away. They're interested in getting their money. And if you've named the next owner, more than likely what they're going to do is they're going to start to work with that person. And that's the advantage of a transfer on death instrument. What we see happen so often is that when people pass and they don't have a will, or they have a will and the family doesn't want to go through probate, the banks aren't going to work with that person because they're not the owner of the property. And because they're not the owner of the property, the bank says, go take care of that before we're going to work with you to either change the amount of the mortgage to make it more, complementary to your financial situation. And that's when people lose their homes. They lose their parents' homes because the bank isn't willing to work with them. And then it goes into foreclosure, and then the home is gone from the family forever. The transfer on death instrument makes that person the owner as soon as you pass. All they have to do is accept it, and then the bank is now obligated to talk to them because they're the owner of the property. If the bank then says, you know what, I don't want to work with you, they're going to run into some issues when it comes time to foreclose, because the judge is going to say, why aren't you talking to the owner? That's another one of the advantages of the transfer on death instrument.
Question over here.
So I'm going to take one more, and then I want to get to the rest of them because I don't want to keep you all here all day.
Actually, it's not a question, but with the checking accounts and savings accounts and things like that.
We're going to get to that. So if you're going to talk, so don't take my thunder. I've worked too hard. I've worked too hard for this. We're going to get to that. So we're going to move on because apparently the people are getting itchy. So there is, for your car, so we talked about the house, how you can make sure your house goes to who you want. In the state of Illinois, you can make sure that your cars go to directly who you want them to go to without those items ever going to probate. There is a form which is called a beneficiary affidavit. And this one, unfortunately, isn't in the brochure, so please write it down. It's called a beneficiary affidavit. This form is available via the Secretary of State's website, Jesse White, Cyber Drive, Illinois, and you can go to Google and just type in State of Illinois beneficiary affidavit, and it'll pull it right up. Take you right to that link. What this form allows for you to do is to establish who you want for your car or your vehicles to go to upon your death. All you do is fill it out with your information, the VIN number, and that person's information, and then the both of you go before a notary, or it can be multiple people, but go before a notary, sign it, and then that person keeps it. They keep the form. It's a good idea to have multiple copies, do multiple originals. So sign 3, 4, 5 original documents and then have those in multiple places. And then once you pass away, your loved one takes this form in to the Secretary of State, pays the transfer title fee, which right now is $70, and the vehicles are theirs. Get transferred right over. This form is free. Who here likes free? There we go. So now we've taken care of your house or houses. We've taken care of your cars. And now it's time to talk about how you can ensure your checking accounts get to who you want them to go to without any issues. So, the next thing, in order to ensure your checking accounts go where they need to, is to establish your checking accounts as something that's called a payable on death account. So in Illinois, yes, ma'am. So the question is, you can't just put a beneficiary on there and they take over. So the answer is no. You can't do it that way. You have to explicitly go into the bank and say to them, I want to establish a payable on death account, or what's called an ITF, or an in trust for account. So right now, most of us probably have savings and checkings accounts, and we probably don't have on beneficiaries on there. And the reason why is because you have to explicitly, specifically go in and ask for them to set that account up as such. They then have to add language to the name of that account which states payable on death or in trust for. Once they do so, you then can establish who those beneficiaries are going to be, and then once you pass, it automatically transfers right over to them. And this is something that, as far as I know, no bank is going to tell you about, because it's up to you to ask for it. And ultimately, if you don't know about it, you can't ask. So that's why it's imperative you go into the bank, say, I want to establish a payable on death account, or a POD account. Once you do so, they'll then provide you with the necessary documentation, and then you fill out who you want to name as a beneficiary. Once you pass, that beneficiary goes into the bank with a certified copy of your death certificate, and the checking and savings accounts are theirs. No hoops to jump through, never goes through probate. So it may already be set up.
You just go to the bank.
So it may already be, you may have already have set it up as such. So you could already have a payable on death account. So you want to go to your bank and then clarify that you have a payable on death account. Make certain of it. Verify. Yes.
Okay, I was recently told that if your beneficiary just comes in with the death certificate, that is sufficient. So you're saying now that's not correct.
So if you've already set up your account as a payable on death, then you're ahead of the game. Most people haven't. So I have Bank of America, and when I signed up for my checking account, I just signed up for direct deposit and all that other stuff. I don't have any beneficiary, or I didn't have any beneficiaries. So I had to go back into the bank and say, I'd like to have a payable on death account, and they have the language inside of their disclaimers that says you have to ask for it. And once I did so, then I got the paperwork to be able to put on those beneficiaries. So for the people who are asking, if you've already established a beneficiary on your checking or savings account, then you have a payable on death account already. So you're ahead of the game. However, if you don't have a beneficiary on your checking or savings account, which is what I imagine probably about 95% of people are in that predicament, you can go in and ask explicitly for a payable on death account to put those beneficiaries on there. Does that make sense? Yes, the average person in here does not have it. Yes, ma'am.
Because they also say on your pension plans, beneficiaries, if you've already named an individual,
so that's separate.
All you need is the death certificate.
Right. So that's separate. So pensions, stock plans, all of that stuff, IRAs, all of that's separate. Insurance policies, all of those are going to inherently ask for a beneficiary because they understand that older people are the ones who have this, and there's a good chance that they might die. It's just a reality, unfortunately. No news there. Checking accounts aren't set up that way because of the fact that the bank doesn't have an inherent expectation that you're going to be dying anytime soon. So because of that, it's up to the user of that checking or savings account with a bank, totally separate from the pensions and all those other things, to specify that they want a beneficiary. If they don't, then at which point they're going to have to potentially go through probate or use something else that's called a small estate affidavit, which we'll talk about in just a few moments. So I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then we're going to go to the next item.
Is there a transfer fee for the payable on death account?
No. So banks, if a bank tries to, then at which point you can call our office, and then I'll be able to give you some more information. But there should not be a fee for establishing a payable on death account or once it actually transitions.
Like you said,
Yes.
to verify what you're saying, for a deferred pension plan, the beneficiary is on there, so we don't have to.
Correct. So when we talk about all those other assets like pension plans, stocks, IRAs, CDs, all of those, not all, but the good majority of those items, they're expected to be passed on. Those items usually give you a form when you first create it that asks for a beneficiary. When you have a life insurance policy, when I signed up for my pension through the great Cook County Recorder of Deeds, it gives us those options. All we're talking about today are the items which usually don't give you the beneficiaries, and those are the ones that usually end up in probate. The house, the cars, and the checking and savings accounts. Those are what usually end up in probate. These are tools that prevent you from, or your loved ones, from ever having to go to probate, and can save thousands of dollars because all of these forms were what? Free. Free. So at which point that's what that's about. So I'm going to quickly move on. So we've talked about the payable on death accounts. Go to your bank, ask them. If by chance they say, well, we don't know what you're talking about, tell them, yes, you do. It's Illinois law. So at which point they don't have an option on this. So if by chance there's any other property out there, once you've taken care of your house, your vehicles, and your checking accounts that your loved ones want to get access to, they potentially have the option to use what's called a small estate affidavit. That small estate affidavit allows them to go to these other places that have your property, and they can say, hey, this person passed. I'm interested in getting it because I am an heir. Now, there are 6 caveats to that. Those 6 caveats are, first, that the total amount of the personal property in the estate is less than $100,000. So if you have some other property, for instance, we had a lady at one of our former workshops where her husband worked for the state of Illinois Police Department, and he had saved over $100,000 with the credit union. Unfortunately, she wasn't on it, and because of that, she now has to go to probate to get that because they're not working with her. What's that? It wasn't on the account. He didn't have a payable on death account. And because it's more than $100,000 in there, she can't use this small estate affidavit. So, and that's the thing. People assume those type of things, and sometimes it doesn't happen. That's why don't leave $100,000 to chance. Take these steps. Make sure, because once you're gone, all that's going to happen is that people are just going to say sorry. You have to go through probate. You have to go take these steps. That's why it's so important that you take the precautions ahead of time. And as you can see, it's not necessarily that expensive. It's even as simple as free in a lot of cases. Yes. Thank you. So thank you for coming. And I'm going to run through these next ones because I don't want to keep you all. Plus, we're going to be at Harvey at 1 o'clock doing the same workshop as well. So the second option is, or the second caveat is that there can be no real estate included in your estate. So that's why it's so important that you do that transfer on death instrument, because it pulls the property out of your estate. The third thing is that there can be no letters of office issued. So if you have loved ones and they don't like the way that you set up your plan, they can wreck it for everyone else, because they can go initiate a probate claim, and now everybody has to go through that for the things you haven't already designated. Fourth thing is that if a will exists, it has to be filed within 30 days with the clerk's office. And then the sixth thing is that there can be no disputes amongst outpaid or outstanding creditors and judgments and things of that nature. So the small estate affidavit is available. It's free. You can get it from the Secretary of State's office, or you can get it from Dorothy Brown, the clerk of the circuit court's office. So that is an option which is available as well with those particular indications. Now, step 3 is very simple. Tell your heirs what your plan is. Once you've went through all of these different things, whatever your plan is, whatever you decide to go with, whether it be a trust, whether it be just a will, whether you set up a transfer on death instrument, a beneficiary affidavit, or a payable on death account, tell your heirs what your plan is, because once that trust is lost, because you didn't trust them with the information, it's very hard to get it back. Now, since it sounds like there's a workshop coming up about reverse mortgages, I won't go too in depth about this, but when considering a reverse mortgage, make certain that you look over all the paperwork. There are numerous reverse mortgages out there which say that if you can't live in your home for an extended period, which just means 6 months, they can potentially become the owners of the property. They get your property. If you go into the hospital or into any type of senior home for a 6-month stint, they now own your home and you can't get it back. It's also a case where even if a lot of the times they have what are called acceleration clauses. So what that means is that if they've given you out $50,000 over the course of this loan, once you pass away, your loved ones have to come up with that $50,000 plus interest within about 90 days, or else they lose the home. So reverse mortgages, sometimes they're beneficial. If you don't have any loved ones that you want to leave the home to and you just want to use it as a piggy bank, then by all means do so. Travel all over the world. But if you have loved ones and you want for them to have your home, consider and think twice about a reverse mortgage. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So at this point, I'm at the conclusion. If by chance you think, so I like to, did anyone find this beneficial? Excellent, excellent. So thank you for coming. If by chance you happen to know of another venue, of another organization which you think would benefit from this, please take down my information, contact us, and we will come out. We come out 7 days a week, any time of day. Next week we'll be doing 4 of these workshops all over Cook County. So we will come and we will get this information out. And as I pointed out, the recorder doesn't benefit from this. You all aren't going to come in and start spending more money with us because it doesn't really pertain to us. This is exclusively for you all's benefit. So please take advantage of it. My number is on the back of that brochure. So if by chance, it's where it says CCRD Public Info Office. So that's my number. And at which point we can set up an additional workshop. We come wherever. I love coming to the south suburbs because then I just have to drive a few minutes. So please do those. And then finally, I'd like to leave you with this. And I see a few hands, so I'll take those. Yes, ma'am.
Number one is, how can my house be stolen? How can a house be stolen? How do people do that? And the second thing, if I want to, like you said, we have our deed somewhere we cannot find. If I go there to get the deed, will they give me a copy?
Okay, so those are 2 great questions. So the first question is that how can your home be stolen? So as a very kind of quick, short, abbreviated version, in order for someone to steal their home, they create a fraudulent deed. And they do so on their computer at home via Microsoft Word. It takes all of 3 minutes. That deed says that out of the goodness of your heart, you decided to give them your home for free. They then bring that deed into our office, usually right here at Markham, and they record it. And it now establishes that on paper, they are the owner of your home. You are no longer the owner of your home. They then wait for you to come to a great workshop like this, leave the home unattended. They break in, change the locks, and they now own your home, both on paper and physically in possession. When you get home and try and put your key in the door and it doesn't turn, you then call the police. And in most instances, unless the police know you by face, they get out and say, sorry, we can't help you because the person who's in the home shows them a deed which says that yesterday you gave them that home for free. So that's how people steal homes. This actually happened to the former City of Chicago treasurer, Stephanie Neely. She woke up, went into work downtown. When she got home, her key didn't work and someone had stolen her home. And it was a nightmare for her to unravel. We've changed that process, and I'll work with Shad to see about possibly setting up where we come out and do the property fraud prevention workshop where we explain exactly how it works. and we talk about all the different scams that we know of. There are right now 10 different ones which are really hammering the south suburbs. So we can hopefully set that up. We'll talk about the details on that. And then as far as if you have a deed but you don't know where it is, that's when Director Jordan comes into play. So let's say that you have a deed because you bought your home back in the 70s. That deed is only in our books or on microfilm. In order to get a copy of that deed, you need to come in and see Rachel Jordan's incredible staff downtown Chicago at 118 North Clark Street, and they will help you get a copy of that deed. It normally only costs about $10 for a non-certified or $20 for a certified. If you're getting letters in the mail which say, buy a deed through us, the Illinois Deed Company will get you one for only $80 or $100, never, ever, ever respond to those. Those are scams. They are upcharging you for things you can get for yourself for a fraction of the cost. So you can get a copy of that deed. If you bought your home after October 1st of 1985, you can get a copy of that deed from our website, cookrecorder.com, and it'll only cost you about $4. So you can get that information from us. Oftentimes it's just a fraction of the cost of what some scam companies are advertising for.
And you also spoke on will and trust. I think I have both. I know I have trust. I pay downtown. But are you saying that both of them are not really relevant? They're good to have, but you still have to go through the process after death, my kids and my sisters.
That is correct. So what we talked about today is that you have a will. It still needs to go through probate. If you have a trust, your trustee is going to have to handle everything. If they don't know how to, they're going to need to contact an attorney or a specialist to do so. And everything that we discussed as far as those three forms, the transfer on death instrument, the beneficiary affidavit, and the payable on death account, ensures that you don't have to worry about that with those three assets. Your home, your cars, and your checking and savings accounts will automatically transfer without anyone having to do anything except for show up with a death certificate. Yes, ma'am.
Have all these documents in the safety deposit box?
So that's a great question. So the question is, should you have all the documents we talked about in the safety deposit box? So the transfer on death instrument is recorded on your chain of title. So it's always preserved, so you don't have to worry about that one because it's with us. The beneficiary affidavit, it's a good idea to have that one in a safe place. If you go with the safety deposit box, just let the loved ones know. The payable on death account, it's not a form. It's a way that your checking and savings account is changed, so it's preserved through the bank. So the only one that you really have to worry about preserving and having is that beneficiary affidavit. That's it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, so if you purchased your home before October 1st of 1985, you're going to come in to our downtown office and see Director Rachel Jordan, and at which point she is going to help you get in touch with one of our staff members who are going to help you find that deed. And then if you want, we can get you a non-certified copy or a certified copy. No. So the question is when you refinance, you get a new deed. So a lot of people think that once you finish paying off your mortgage, that's when you get your deed. That's not how it works. When you first buy your home, that's when you should have gotten your deed. That's when your deed would have been recorded. When you buy your home, most of us get a mortgage. And then once we finish paying off the mortgage, the bank is responsible for recording what's called a release of lien or a release of mortgage. That's what gets recorded with our office. Usually it only gets sent to our office and not to you. So you're never going to get anything in the mail letting you know that your mortgage has been released. If you want a copy of that release, you can get it from our website of cookrecorder.com, or you can go to Markham and you can get that. But you don't get a new deed when you pay off your home. It doesn't work like a car where you get the title after you finish paying it off. When you first buy the home, you are the owner of it. Once you pay off the mortgage, that's what's usually called owning your home free and clear, because there are no outstanding liens or mortgages against the property. So that's how that one works. All right, so at which point, I'd like to thank you all for having us. I'll be around for a little while after if you have any more questions, and I'm going to turn it back over to our great host.
Thank you so much. Did a great job, Mr. Reed. Let's give him another round of applause. So not only did we have a little James Brown, and you mentioned Prince, but we also slipped into male-female relationships for a minute too right there when he started talking about the boats. So thank you again. He stated he will be here afterwards. We have to wrap up, but I saw some of your hands still up here, even though he answered a lot of questions. I also want to again give a shout out and thank Ms. Sandra Wells, whose idea was actually to have this. Give her a round of applause again, because she contacted our office and said, I think this would be valuable, and we're definitely, Mr. Reed, going to bring you back to do all of that other stuff that you talked about. So we'll be in touch and be letting you all know.